Windport was the Demon Continent's only port city, which gave it a certain weight. Rolling hills, mud and stone architecture, and at the far edge of it all, the ocean. I hadn't seen the ocean since middle school in my previous life, meaning I was running two separate strands of nostalgia simultaneously, and the math on that was giving me a headache. The ocean here was the same as the one I remembered. Same blue, same crashing waves, same birds that looked almost exactly like seagulls. There were sailboats, real wooden sailboats with cloth sails, gliding through the water. Only in movies before. Seeing the actual thing made my heart pound in a way I wasn't prepared for. "Look, the ocean," Eris said, launching herself off the lizard like she'd been fired from a trebuchet. Fluent demon god tongue, incidentally. Her language skills had improved dramatically over the past year. I had completely neglected to teach her any magic since arriving on the demon continent, so she couldn't cast spells without chanting and had probably forgotten the chants anyway. Priorities. "Eris, wait, we haven't decided on an inn." She stopped. Third time we'd had this exchange since arriving. First time she got lost. Second time, fight on a street corner. She bounded back while still glancing over her shoulder at the sea every 3 seconds. "Can we swim?" The answer was no, because Ruijerd pointed out there were monsters in the water, and because Eris didn't have a swimsuit. "What the heck is a swimsuit? I don't need one." She intended to swim in her underwear, or possibly nothing at all. I spent 5 seconds constructing a detailed mental image before pulling myself together. Live in the now, I told myself. We gave up on swimming. In the time it took me to ask one question at the counter, Eris had punched a man across the room. "Just who and where do you think you were touching?" The man claimed it was an accident. Eris didn't care. By the time I turned around, she already had her foot pressed into his weak spot with the expression of someone completing a math problem. She had become genuinely terrifying to fight this year. Her lower body was so powerful that damage charged her aggression instead of stopping it. A bald guy and a ferocious red-headed girl. Could you guys be dead end? The room went quiet. Hushed discussion followed. We were real, A-ranked with only 3 people, and the 2 of them had apparently developed nicknames. Mad Dog Eris and Guard Dog Ruijerd. Both dogs. I spent a moment wondering why. Then I wondered what kind of dog that made me. Not a fighting dog. Not gallant. The most accurate nickname for my role would have been Faithful Dog, or maybe Clever Dog. I considered Butter Dog for a moment. You know, the kind that helps women get off. But that wasn't something I was going to propose out loud. Then that little midget over there must be Kennel Master Ruijerd. The Kennel Master is the nastiest one of all. Kennel Master. Ruijerd. They had given Ruijerd's name to the person I'd been putting my actual name on for a year. Perhaps I had been too enthusiastic about cackling, "My name is Rudeus, wahaha," every time something bad happened. The guild settled into laughter about the Kennel Master being small, and about what else might be small. I allowed this. I was in a developmental phase, a bamboo shoot, if you will. But bamboo shoots become trees eventually, and the gap between where I was and where I was going wasn't as wide as they seemed to think. I kept this private. Eris had gone red in the face and was avoiding eye contact. I found that adorable in a way I chose not to examine too closely. 200 green ore coins. The crossing fee for a Superd. The checkpoint official made clear it was not a mistake. 2 humans, 5 steel iron coins. 1 Superd, 200 green ore coins. "They're treating your race like a ticking time bomb," I told Ruijerd. "I know," he said. For context, a B-ranked mission on the Demon Continent netted roughly 150 to 200 stone coins. On the Millis continent, with its different currency system, King's dollars down to copper coins, the same B-ranked work was worth about 10 times as much. We had planned to cross quickly and earn properly on the other side. Nobody had planned for a species tax worth years of savings. At dinner, seafood steamed in rice wine with garlic butter, genuinely the best food I'd had since arriving on the continent, we held a strategy meeting. Eris ate with knife in right hand, stabbing food directly into her mouth, her etiquette tutor Edna conceptually weeping across the ocean. Ruijerd used only his fork, sliding it through the fish like it wasn't there. No elegance, but complete competence, the skills of someone who had been solving practical problems with basic tools for 800 years. 3 options. 1. Earn money through guild work and pay the fee. Too slow. Would take years, even prioritizing A-ranked missions. 2. Labyrinth dive for a magic crystal. Ruijerd vetoed it immediately, and he was right. I was careless with my feet and would trigger a trap at some point. 3. Find a smuggler. Legally questionable, probably the only viable route. Oh, and 4. Sell my staff. I presented 3 options publicly. The man-god returns. He appeared in my dream with exactly the smug expression I remembered. It's been a while, I said. A bit hard for me to show myself, he admitted. My advice last time didn't go very well for you, did it? You could say I was embarrassed. The man-god, embarrassed. I genuinely hadn't expected that. It didn't change the fact that I fundamentally didn't trust him, but it was a more human reaction than I'd anticipated. His advice, buy food from a street stall, walk through the back alleys alone, see what happens. I guessed what would happen out loud. He laughed. Save the surprise for tomorrow. I spent the rest of the dream arguing with myself. If I followed his advice brainlessly, that was what he wanted. If I overthought everything, that was also what he wanted. He'd said himself that it was more entertaining when I gave it too much thought. Either direction led me right into the palm of his hand. I decided to just do it without overthinking. Which was, I realized as I made that decision, also exactly what he wanted. Fine. Last time. After this, he could find someone else to manipulate. I bought skewers of roasted things, scallops, something resembling horse mackerel, others unidentifiable, and wandered the back alleys alone, without any plan, which was itself a plan. I found a girl slumped against a wall with a shady man pulling at her hand. Standard. I'd called it. I hit him with a modified stone cannon. Earth magic shaped and powered at the speed and impact of a boxer's jab, a technique I'd spent a year developing for situations requiring non-lethal force. He went down. I turned to the girl. She was wearing knee-high boots, hot pants, a tube top, and nothing else. All that pale skin at her clavicle, waist, belly button, thighs exposed, plus goat horns and voluminous, wavy purple hair. My brain said, succubus. Then my brain corrected, succubi were from the Begaric continent, not the demon continent, and the grey rat family had apparently never produced a member who could resist them. Paul had explained this with an unusually tense expression that I'd filed under, warning, I'll probably need later. But in a city, there were no monsters. She was just a demon kid in very revealing clothing, one who was nearly dead from starvation. It's been a year since I revived, she said. My stomach was empty. I didn't mention the giant isopod comparison that was forming in my mind, the ones that can go years without eating, without technically dying, because she was already in a bad state. Instead, I crammed 3 skewers into her mouth. She devoured 10 of my 12. In seconds. Delicious! The first thing I've had in a year, and it's so tasty. She leaped to her feet from a prone position, did a full rotation in the air, and landed cleanly. Then she looked at me. Her eyes, one purple, one green. Mismatched. In this world, coloured contacts didn't exist, so that was her natural colour. Then her right eye spun around and turned blue, which I was not ready for. She stared at my face like I was the one being weird. Whoa! Whoa! What is this? Aha! I've never seen this before. Being called disgusting by someone I'd just saved was not the outcome I'd anticipated. Could you be a twin whose other half died in the womb? She asked. No. But your mana pool, it's larger than Laplace's. Laplace, the demon god, most revered figure in demon mythology. She was comparing my mana to the greatest demon in history and saying I had more of it. I filed that away for later. She introduced herself. Kishirika Kishirisu, great emperor of the demon world. Her thighs appeared in front of me so suddenly that I stuck my tongue out without thinking. Ah! What are you doing? That's filthy. She scrubbed her thighs together where I'd licked her, glaring at me. Right. I owed her an apology. That had happened. I was 70% certain she was the real Kishirika, the immortal demon emperor, bestower of demon eyes. She offered me one wish. I asked for money. She was penniless. I asked for half the world. She said it was half-hearted. Why only half? I told her I didn't need the men. She found this logically defensible. I asked for her body. She considered this seriously. This is my first time since I revived. Be gentle. She reached for her hot pants. I prepared a dignified refusal. Ah, no, I mustn't. She stopped herself. I already have a fiancé. She pulled her pants back up, She had been about to follow through and then remembered. The timing of that memory was impeccable. Anyway, money, no. World, no. Body, no. What she could give me was a demon eye. She explained the types. Eyes of magical power, 1 in 10,000 people, most common. Eyes of identification, like a dictionary, limited to her knowledge. Eyes of X-ray vision, see through walls and clothing, perfect for a pervert like you. Eyes of distant sight, see far away but can't influence anything. She didn't recommend for me specifically. Eyes of foresight, see moments into the future. Eyes of absorption, consume mana including your own, strongly not recommended. I asked for 2. She said 2 would drive me mad or blind me entirely. There'd been a Superd in Ruijerd's old battle troop, with a demon eye who'd kept an eye patch over it his entire life, and never managed to control it. Ghislaine, my former swordmaster, wore an eye patch for the same reason. Not because she'd lost an eye, but because she had a demon eye she'd never mastered. 1 then. The Eye of Foresight. Bring your face over here. Alri. She jammed her finger into my right eye. I screamed. She twisted her fingers around in my eye socket for an unreasonable amount of time, then pulled them out with a pop. She told me to do my best learning to control it, leaped to the roof, and vanished with a receding laugh. I stood in the alley holding my eye, confirming that the great emperor of the demon world had been real this entire time. On the way back, everything was doubled, and I kept misjudging distances and bumping into people. I bumped into a thug who started a fight. And then I noticed, in that doubled vision, in the ghost image of the future, a flower pot falling from a window directly above his head. I channeled wind magic with my right hand and blew him sideways. The flower pot shattered exactly where he'd been standing. He pointed a sword at me. I mentioned the drunk man he'd been looking for, told him where to find him, and left quickly. The eye had its uses. It took 7 days to master the Eye of Foresight. The mechanics were similar to casting magic without chanting, control through mana. 2 independent parameters. First, opacity, like adjusting the dialogue window transparency in an erotic game. At maximum, everything was fully doubled and unwatchable. I tuned it down to the exact point where the future image was visible but not distracting. Second, duration, how far forward I was seeing. Natural range, 1 second. With more mana, 2 or 3 seconds. But at 5, the images split into so many possible futures that it gave me a headache. 3 days on opacity, 3 on duration, 1 on controlling both simultaneously. During this week, Eris and Ruijerd went off together every single day. When they returned, Eris was drenched in sweat. Ruijerd perspired slightly more than usual. Every day. I asked what they were doing. Heh, that's a secret. She was wringing out a rag soaked through with sweat as she said this. I considered asking if I could have the rag. I decided against it. Gentleman's honor. Ruijerd proposed a spar with Eris to test the eye in combat. I accepted, telling Eris I wasn't expecting to win. I just wanted to see what I could observe. She tried to punch me first while still finishing her sentence. I saw it 1 second early and dodged. She launched into an onslaught instead of reeling. That was Eris. Damage charged her aggression. I foresaw the sword swing, countered, struck her forearm, and she dropped the sword. Previous me would have called that a win, but the eye showed me. She dropped the sword deliberately to lower my guard. Her left fist was already moving toward my chin. Your legs are open. I swept her foot and she went sideways. Still not over. She was going to catch herself and grab my right leg. I stepped back and knelt, pinning her before she could complete the movement. That's enough, Ruijerd called from the side. First time I had ever beaten Eris in close combat without magic. She stood up slowly, dusted herself off. She's going to punch me. I caught her fist. I'm going home. Her shoulders trembled as she walked back to the inn. Then I tried Ruijerd. He put his lance aside and offered to spar empty-handed. First vision, his palm coming straight at me. I reached out to block it. The vision split. 2 possible futures simultaneously. One where he grabbed my hand, one where he punched my face. Both contingent on what I did next. This was new. Within the 1 second window, the future was branching. Because Ruijerd had adapted, he'd decided, if I defend with my hand, grab it. If I don't, punch. One decision from him created 2 possible futures, and my eye was showing me both. He punched me in the face. I'd seen it coming, and still couldn't move in time. I was already contorted from the previous dodge. I conceded. He explained. He'd fought someone with the same demon eye before. Ever since, he'd practiced fighting with the assumption that his opponent could see 1 second ahead, creating split decisions. Think of shogi. Even if a novice can see one move ahead, they still lose to a master. The gap in experience turned every visible future into a trap. The eye had real value. I had beaten Eris. But against genuine fighters, it was something to grow into, not a shortcut to the top. My inner, wise old sage, the bald, sunglasses-wearing authority figure who occasionally materialized in my head to deliver uncomfortable truths, appeared briefly, said something along the lines of, "Now you understand what you don't know," and hopped on his turtle and disappeared. When I returned to the inn, Eris was sitting on the bed with her knees pulled to her chest. Ruijerd, who had caused this situation by using me to deflate her ego after a week of secret training, was conveniently absent. I sat beside her. She leaned against me. The scent of sweat, warm and genuine, the smell of someone who'd worked hard in good faith, filled my nostrils. My affection meter, which had been rising, pinged loudly. This was the setup for the love story. Her defenses down, my gentleness in response. She would fall for me. The two of us would hold each other cheek to cheek. Ruijerd would return to a much more intimate situation than he'd left. It's cheating, Rudeus. You got a demon eye for yourself, while I had to work my butt off. The affection meter crashed through the floor. She was right. I hadn't worked for the eye. I bought some skewers and wandered down an alley. Meanwhile, Eris had spent 7 days in disciplined secret training, managed to defeat Ruijerd once. Ruijerd, which I will never achieve in my entire life, and I had used a power that fell into my lap to beat her. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. She didn't move away from me. We sat in silence, and the warmth of her felt like criticism. I decided I would only use the eye as a genuine last resort. Relying on it constantly would prevent my real skills from developing. I had almost turned myself into exactly the tool the man-god wanted me to be. Late that night, once Eris had fallen asleep with her shirt riding up, I covered her, gentlemen. I picked up my staff and left the inn. Aquahatia. Birthday gift from Eris. Enormous magic crystal. Asura Kingdom masterwork. At a night pawn shop, it would cover the crossing fee easily. I made it 3 steps outside. Where are you going this late at night? Ruijerd, standing in front of the inn. Not in his room, outside, watching. I was going to a brothel, I said, and you need your staff for that? It's a prop, for sex play. A long silence. You intend to sell it, he said. He always does this. What followed was one of the most unexpectedly principled conversations I'd had since arriving in this world. He refused to let me sell it, not from sentimentality, but because selling it would create a debt of shame between us that no practical solution could erase. He held up Roxy's pendant, the one he wore around his neck. He told me he would never give up his spear, even driven against a wall, not for sentimental reasons, but because it was the embodiment of a warrior's spirit. A fighter who sold their weapon to buy their way out of a problem had lost something money couldn't buy back. Then the unexpected part, use a smuggler. He would close his eyes to their crimes. He had already resolved this. If you see a real sleazebag and you can't hold back, tell me. We should at least be able to help a child. He was bending his 800-year-old principles for my sake, so I wouldn't have to sell a staff that mattered to me. We shook hands in the dark outside the inn. We were still standing there when Ruijerd suddenly raised his spear. Who is it? What business do you have here? A man stepped from the alley shadows, bearded, scarred, sword at his side, hands raised to show he wasn't looking for a fight. I recognized him, the thug with the flower pot. He had tracked us down to return a favor. In his line of work, unpaid debts were dangerous. They accumulated and eventually forced betrayals. He had heard our conversation just now, and as it happened, he was a member of a smuggling organization. He didn't want to take us for free. He wanted us to free a specific group of slaves being held for transfer. One of them, in particular, would cause serious future problems if sold. He needed someone capable and discreet who could handle it without implicating him. We weren't committing crimes. We were preventing them. Ruijerd nodded that he'd accept whatever I decided. All right, we'll do it. His name was Gallus Cleaner, mine, as I introduced it, was Rudeus Greyrat. We shook hands and made a deal with a member of a criminal organization in the middle of the night, and that was how our ocean crossing problem was solved. Roxy Migurdia stepped off the ship at Windport and stopped. 15 years. The air was different here, nostalgic in a way she hadn't expected. When she first left the Demon Continent, she'd arrived in Millishian on the Millis continent and eaten human-made sweets for the first time. They were so astonishingly good that she decided on the spot she would never eat food from the Demon Continent again, and she would never return. A decision made entirely on the basis of pastry. A bit simple-minded, she acknowledged now. She had returned anyway. Life went where it went. The woman who called her over was a Linalese Dragonroad, an elf, magnificent figure, golden hair, and perpetually on the hunt for men, regardless of context or urgency. Technically under a curse requiring regular intimate companionship, but she didn't seem particularly bothered. Behind her, tottering down the gangplank in full heavy armor, was Talhand, a dwarf magician who wore armor because he couldn't dodge anything and relied on it to cast spells safely on the front line. He had spent the entire sea voyage profoundly seasick. Seriously? How pathetic. It's just a boat, Eleanor said. Talhand's face went red. Roxy intervened, as she always did. She had met the two of them at Eastport, former members of Paul and Zenith's old party, the Fangs of the Black Wolf. Their objectives aligned. They were looking for Paul's missing family. She was looking for Rudeus. They had pooled resources and moved fast, arriving on the Demon Continent ahead of schedule. She was, she realized, more famous here than expected. A troubadour had written songs about her early adventures. A young blue-haired girl from the Demon Continent who left her village, met 3 novice adventurers, and went on to become a Water Saint Tier magician and court mage of Sharon Kingdom. The song didn't use her name. Adventurers recognized her from the description anyway. The first time she'd gotten a party invitation on the strength of this song and tried to tell the boys she was the protagonist, she found out her name wasn't in it anywhere. She had embarrassed herself. The song also claimed she'd become A-ranked in a year. In reality, it had taken 5. The 3 novice adventurers in the story, the Rikarisu gang, had been real. A sarcastic one, who was genuinely good at looking out for people, a foul-mouthed, determined one, and a clever one who held the group together and didn't survive the journey. They'd parted ways at Windport. Nokapara and Blaze, 20 years ago. They'd probably retired long since, if they were still alive at all. She cut the nostalgia short. She was here to find Rudeus. She already missed Millis pastries.